AEW has a big Mercedes Mone problem, and in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what that problem is and how they can fix it. Look, Mercedes Mone, when she signed with AEW earlier this year in March, well, it was a big signing. It was a notable signing because it was one of the key ingredients in their hopeful turnaround plan for the women's division as well as the promotion. This comes at a time where AEW is bringing in the likes of Will Ospreay and Okada, and obviously we have since seen that they brought in Camille and the Hurt Syndicate. There are numerous key acquisitions when it comes to talent in AEW, and there's a lot more former WWE stars than homegrown stars if you go back through the years and compare. Mercedes Mone was a big signing that came with a big check. And since her arrival in AEW, there's been a lot of criticism about Mercedes Mone, whether it's her promos that don't really connect and or her in-ring work. In my opinion, I've been critical of Mercedes Mone in terms of her promos. They don't relate to the AEW fans, and really they don't relate to fans in general, right? She's supposed to be a babyface, but she has heel tendencies, and not likable ones at that. She's not a cool heel. She's actually just a heel that you want to root against, despite the fact that she was a babyface. Now, in my opinion, they've transitioned her back into being a heel, and I think that's in a much better spot for her. She's also really tightened in on her promos, and they are more straightforward, typical pro wrestling heel heat type promos. And her in-ring work, as she has gone on, she has gotten better and better and better. Keep in mind that she had missed a large part of 2023 due to a severe injury that resulted in her having surgery, right? So she had to work off some of that in-ring rust, and it didn't help that, she's working, once a month, twice a month at the most in AEW. So that is that. Here's the big problem that I don't think a lot of people are talking about when it comes to Mercedes Mone. It's not necessarily her promos, because I just said they're getting better. In-ring, not an issue. She's starting to find her character. The issue is Mercedes Mone, whether she's a babyface or a heel, she's not elevating talent, right? Now, I know she's been in a recent feud with Chris Statlander. They recently ran it back at World's End. Chris Statlander is not a bigger star than she once was before meeting Mercedes Mone in their original match, and she's not a bigger star coming out of the rematch either. She's still on the same level. And that's a common trend. Now, when we talk about heels in the industry, you always have to keep in mind that the heel's job is twofold. One, it is to get people to despise them, usually targeting a babyface or therefore talking down a local crowd, and to make the babyface a bigger, relatable, and likable character after they work with them. Well, Mercedes Mone has not done that, right? If you go down the list of who she's been able to work with in AEW, Double or Nothing, she went over Willow Nightingale to win the TBS title. Willow Nightingale is not a bigger star now and or after she worked with Mone. In fact, she's fallen down the card. If you go to Forbidden Door, there is an outlier, Stephanie Valker. The only problem is she got Stephanie Valker hired by WWE. AEW tried to sign her, and that was not something in which Tony Khan could do. So she did get one talent over, but if you look at the large resume, and I'm about to go down it, she didn't get these talents over and make them bigger stars. She proceeds to beat Nyla Rose, who has disappeared from the earth, in July on a Dynamite. She went over Hikaru Shida on Dynamite. And Shida, a former women's champion in AEW, not a bigger star. Now, she did go into a program with Britt Baker. Britt Baker had been sidelined for most of 2024 and large part of 2023 as well. Now, obviously, AEW has this weird booking pattern with Britt Baker. One minute they use her, and the next minute they just ghost her for months. She's worked a handful of matches since All In, hasn't done anything with her of note. She then went over Momo Wannabe at Capital Collision. That's a New Japan show. She beat Shida again at All Out. Not a big star. She then went and beat Emi Sakura, Queen Aminata, and then obviously Chris Statlander at Full Gear. Now, Mercedes Mone is coming off of a huge win over Hakasua at a New Japan Strong Evolved event. But if you look at her body of work in AEW, you get the sense of she's booked sparingly in terms of in-ring action. I don't have a problem with that, but like, you are supposed to build up talent. Now, don't get it twisted. I am a Mercedes Mone supporter. I want to see her succeed. I think she was, for the business whole, I think she was made the right choice of going to AEW over WWE because you need a strong alternative, a second promotion, if you will, and Mercedes Mone is helping. Obviously, her work in New Japan has been absolutely stellar. I could make the argument that her booking in New Japan, her in-ring work, her promo abilities in New Japan going to 2023 as well as in 2024 and now as we go into 2025 has been actually stronger and more consistent in New Japan than it has been in All Elite Wrestling, which is a problem for AEW and Tony Khan considering the amount of money in which they are paying her. Look, Mercedes Mone is one of the biggest names AEW has under its roster. She's one of the most talented talents that they have under contract, whether that be a promo or in-ring ability. But, if you were going to book someone as a babyface, they have to be likable. She is not likable right now. And if you are booking her as a heel, you have to get heat. I don't know if she's necessarily getting the type of heat that you want. I've heard and I've seen people talk about how she has go away heat. She doesn't have good heat. Look, I always go back to the philosophy of as long as they're making a reaction for a babyface or a heel, as long as the fans are making some type of noise, that's all that matters, right? You can build up that. You can build on that. Your major problem is when you don't have anyone reacting. Well, the problem with, I think, a lot of these opponents, and it all comes down to AEW's booking, is you can bring in a Chris Statlander, you can bring a Sheeta. Those talents are not someone's that I think is a true danger of dethroning Mercedes Mone. Like the biggest name that had a chance to dethrone Mercedes Mone as a TBS champion, the biggest name to bring a real threat to Mercedes Mone was Britt Baker. And the problem with that is they had Britt Baker put Mone over, and I disagreed with that. I thought Britt Baker should have went over. She's a babyface who had not been used very often. She had this huge return, this huge build-up, this huge dream match. The match sucked, and they haven't done anything with her. That's more on AEW and their booking of Britt Baker. And when it comes to Mercedes Mone, she can only do what she can do. It's not a knock on Mone. It's more of a knock on AEW and Tony Khan's booking of Mercedes Mone, but it has got to be addressed and it has got to be fixed, especially with the amount of money that you were paying this woman.